partner in addressing regional challenges and efforts to resolve the Sudan political crisis. We are grateful for His Excellency's leadership and presence here today.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency, Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency, Mustafa Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency, Sheikh Shabot Al Nahyan, Minister of State of the UAE, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Your Excellency, Dr. Workina Gabayo, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, Honorable Ministers, distinguished heads of international and regional organizations, members of the diplomatic community, invited guests. I warmly welcome you to this high-level conference on the humanitarian situation in the Sudan. Allow me to extend my gratitude to the United Nations for its cooperation on this collective effort that brings us together today. I also appreciate the briefers for sharing critical insights into the needs on the ground. This high-level gathering underscores our shared recognition of the urgency of Sudanese humanitarian crisis and reaffirms our collective responsibility to respond decisively and with purpose. As a close neighbor and sister nation, Ethiopia stands in solidarity with the people of Sudan. During these challenging times, our two countries are deeply interdependent, bound by generations of shared struggles, aspirations, and cultural ties. Over the past 6 years, Ethiopia has actively supported Sudanese peace and stability and contributed to its economic endeavors by providing electricity through a dedicated transmission line. Sudan is a nation of abundance, blessed with fertile land and natural resources, capable of feeding millions beyond its borders. In times of relative peace, it has witnessed significant development and growth. However, since April 2023, conflict has inflicted immense suffering, causing widespread displacement and destruction. We are here today because Sudan's humanitarian needs have reached an unprecedented scale. This crisis is not just Sudanese. It is a regional and a global concern, impacting lives, livelihoods, and stability across the Horn of Africa and beyond. Global solidarity is essential to ensure the Sudanese people receive food, clean water, basic health care, including vaccines and medicines, and protection against violence. As the holy months of Ramadan approach, urgent action is required, not just in words, but through tangible commitments to elevate suffering. Ethiopia will continue to stand with Sudan in its time of need, sharing from our limited resources and maintaining an open door policy for Sudanese seeking refuge. We urge donors, international organizations, and the private sector to increase their contributions and help bridge the severe resource gap faced by humanitarian actors. Despite our own challenges, we firmly believe that a neighbor in need is a neighbor indeed. Therefore, Ethiopia pledges a modest contribution of 15 million USD in solidarity with the people of the Sudan. Beyond this immediate assistance, the crisis demands an urgent political solution, as peace is a foundation for lasting recovery. We call upon all stakeholders to intensify efforts toward dialogue and a peaceful resolution. Having had the honor of supporting Sudan's peace process in 2019, I can personally attest to the wisdom and resilience of the Sudanese people. With determination and coordinated effort, Sudan's trajectory can be reversed toward peace. On this basis, I urge all Sudanese stakeholders to choose peace and guide their nation toward unity and prosperity. Ethiopia fully supports a Sudanese-led, Sudanese-owned, and inclusive peace process. We also endorse the African Union Commission and the UN Secretary General's efforts to streamline initiatives and establish a single effective platform for peace in Sudan. I commend our partners, the African Union, IGAD, the UN, and the UAE for their collaboration in hosting this conference. I also would like to extend my gratitude to my dear brother, Dr. William Ruto, for taking time and gracing this important summit. I also extend my gratitude to all stakeholders, prioritizing Sudan and pledging resources to support its humanitarian efforts. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those profound and inspiring words. It is also my honor to invite His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, to deliver his remarks.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Your Excellency Shabut, Your Excellency Musa Faki, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The conflict in Sudan, now in the 22nd month, has devastated a nation that just 4 years ago was on a promising path towards stability and self-sufficiency. Tragically, Sudan's progress towards food security, once exemplified by record wheat harvests and sugarcane plantations, some of which I had the occasion to visit when I served as Minister for Agriculture. All that has been reversed, leaving over half the population of Sudan food insecure and millions at the brink of hunger. This crisis is worsened by the massive displacement of millions, with an estimated 11 million people forced to flee their homes. The collapse of healthcare systems, the spread of preventable diseases, and the deterioration of medical infrastructure have further deepened humanitarian emergency. crisis' regional impact is equally severe as neighboring countries are struggling with overstretched social services due to the growing refugee crisis. This situation demands urgent regional and global intervention. Any discussion of the humanitarian crisis in Sudan must acknowledge that this is a man-made disaster. It is deeply regrettable that the dire humanitarian situation in Sudan stems from a political crisis that has escalated into prolonged and senseless armed conflict. The obstruction of humanitarian access by parties to the conflict is simply unacceptable. We call upon all involved to facilitate unrestricted access for humanitarian convoys and healthcare workers and to allow the resumption of agricultural activity in areas under their control. Your Excellencies, our presence here today reaffirms our unwavering solidarity with the people of Sudan. It is incumbent upon all of us, member states and people of goodwill, alike to support ongoing efforts towards a peaceful resolution while addressing the urgent humanitarian needs of those affected by this conflict, especially women and children. Only through collective commitment and decisive action can we help restore stability and hope for a peaceful future in Sudan. Kenya continues to urge the warring parties to recognize that a military solution, if any, will not and has never brought sustainable peace. We encourage all Sudanese stakeholders to commit to a political resolution through genuine and inclusive dialogue. We continue in Kenya to provide a platform for different actors, political groups, civil society groups, to forge agreement, consensus on the way forward. And as a steadfast advocate for peace, Kenya, alongside IGAD, remains fully prepared to support and facilitate efforts towards a negotiated settlement. It is also imperative that we work together to alleviate the suffering of our Sudanese brothers and sisters. At the Humanitarian Pledging Conference for Sudan held in Paris in April 2024, Kenya pledged $1 million to support humanitarian efforts in Sudan. I am pleased to reaffirm that Kenya will fulfill this pledge with an additional $1 million to demonstrate our support for the Sudanese people. Finally, we urge all external actors supporting the warring parties to refrain from actions that further endanger the lives and future of the Sudanese people. As members of the African Union and the United Nations, we must uphold the fundamental principles of respect for territorial integrity, national sovereignty, and good neighborliness in our pursuit for lasting peace and stability in the Sudan. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your thoughtful remarks.
Because if you say AF, blah, 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 it becomes very, very difficult. So the easiest is AFCRA. Can you say AFCRA? I think it's easy. And I must apologize to the president of Ethiopia. I didn't read him out. But there's a secret behind that. Throughout my life, I've been a speechwriter. I've been a speech maker. Today is the first time that I'm a moderator. So you understand. So with that, may I call on you, Your Excellency, to make your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, MC. Your Excellency Abdul Majid Tabboune, President of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria and Chair of the APRM Forum, Your Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, President of the Republic of Zambia, Your Excellency William Samuel Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency Deputy Chairperson Dr. Munich, Your Excellency Ambassador Calve Gatete, Under Secretary General of UNEC, Excellencies, Ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to welcome you to Addis, to this important session to discuss the creation of African Credit Agency, ACRA. I'm happy you made it very simple. There are some institutions in the midst of us that are pretty much twisting. This one is more simpler and straight, and thank you for that initiative. Allow me to extend my gratitude to President Tabboune, Chair of the African Peer Review Forum. Excellencies, the African Development Bank latest report disclosed that Africa is the second fastest growing continent. Not only this, more than a dozen of African countries among the world's 20 fastest growing countries. Despite the progress we have made, the international rating agencies have often presented a distorted and unhelpful view of our economies, and their assessments are pretty much characterized by unpredictability and inconsistency. The lack of objectivity on credit rating of our economies, on the one hand, has severely hampered our ability to access capital, and on the other, limited our capacity to integrate with the global financial system. Consequently, this lopsided perception has hindered our genuine effort to achieve structural economic transformation and sustainable development. Even now, as Africa's economy demonstrates resilience and continuing its upward trajectory in the post-COVID era, an African credit rating system is more critical than ever. This will sustain the momentum of Africa's growth and progress. Excellencies, 2 years ago, while we have been diligently working to maintain our country's economic growth, one international rating agency relegated us to the so-called junk territory. It wasn't only the rating that was problematic, but the misuse of terminology, isn't it very much condescending? The lexicon was nothing but a page torn from a different era. A subtle, stinging reminder of an outdated and offensive classification of African countries. During that time, only one entity in the whole world stood against the decision made against Ethiopia. It affirmed that the rating did not accurately reflect Ethiopia's creditworthiness, and that entity was the African peer review mechanism. And allow me to seize this opportunity to extend my sincere gratitude for its historic support. It meant a lot to us. That is why, Excellencies, we believe Africa's need for a fair credit rating agency is not a theoretical case. It is rather a reality grounded in facts and lived experience. Since then, Ethiopia has made significant endeavors in its pursuit of genuine economic reform aimed at transforming the lives of its people and fostering prosperity. One notable example And indeed, a fitting backdrop to this important gathering is the recent launch of Ethiopia's Securities Exchange, an achievement that promises to enhance both Ethiopia's and regional financial and capital market. While we are committing for the establishment of a credible African credit rating agency, it is important that this agency must be grounded in 3 pillars, as my sister earlier outlined. That is, robust scientific models, institutional independence, as well as clearly defined parameters to ensure its objectivity. As I conclude, Excellencies, I wish to reiterate Ethiopia's continued commitment towards attaining for the full operationalization of the African Credit Rating Agency. Welcome again, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that very important speech, where, among others, you highlighted the unfairness of the current credit rating system and the need to build a very strong African credit rating agency. We can proceed now, and I would like to invite at this stage His Excellency, the President of Kenya. You have the floor, Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, President Tebboune, President of Algeria and Chair of APRM, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, representatives of Africa Peer Review Mechanism, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, United Nations Commission for Africa, ladies and gentlemen. The time has come to rewrite our history and reclaim our narrative and charge the African Renaissance forward. Esteemed colleagues, our urgent calling is to fulfill our duty to Africa's people and ensure that our continent takes its rightful place in shaping global progress in its full capacity and potential, both as a people and as countries. That is why we are gathered here today. Africa's economic potential is hamstrung by a financial system that misrepresents, distorts, and understates our reality. Global credit rating agencies have not only dealt a bad hand, they have also deliberately failed Africa. They rely on flawed models, distorted and outdated assumptions, and systemic bias, painting an unfair picture of our economies and leading to distorted ratings, exaggerated risks, and unjustifiably high borrowing costs. Let me say this again. Global credit rating agencies have let us down. They continue to rely on very flawed models and outdated assumptions. And the whole system is also biased. The result is that they paint a very unfair picture of our economies, and this has devastating effects because it leads to distorted ratings of what the situation really is. And it also leads to exaggerated risk of our countries and our continent And obviously, that leads to very high borrowing costs. These prejudice assessments come at an enormous cost to Africa. They deter investment, distort global trade, and derail progress towards sustainable development goals. By misjudging Africa, these agencies deny opportunities to investors and economies and deprive nations of prosperity. The numbers tell a damning story. The Africa Peer Review Mechanism and the United Nations Development Programme place the cost of biased credit rating at a staggering $75 billion in lost opportunities. In a continent abundant with natural wealth, vast arable land, billions in diaspora remittances, and the world's largest carbon sinks, credit rating agencies have delivered 94% of all downgrades in the past decade, while arbitrarily designating only 2 African nations as investment grade. We must be bold and call this for what it is: a financial straitjacket imposed on Africa. A system that punishes our economies while rewarding others, even when the fundamentals are comparable, in some cases even better. Excellencies, the foundations of global finance are supposed to be anchored on principles of fairness, transparency, and merit. Yet, these principles are disregarded when it applies to Africa. Africa will no longer accept to be misjudged by scales that overlook our reality. The winds of change are blowing, and our march forward is as unstoppable as it is relentless.
Come over and speak.
An African credit rating agency is not just an alternative. It is, in my opinion, an imperative. This agency must be globally credible and backed by rigorous, credible data and driven by high reporting standards. But more importantly, it must reflect Africa's reality correctly. We will not walk this journey alone. We will build alliances east, west, and north, grounded in shared values of dignity, equity, and progress. We will hold rating agencies to account and demand accurate standards. We will leverage the experience and expertise of Pan-African credit rating, strengthening their capabilities and expanding their reach. The potential impact is profound. Research shows that a one-level improvement in Africa's average credit rating would unlock $15 billion in additional funding. This alone would outstrip official development assistance and meet some of the critical aspects of Africa's infrastructure needs. The opportunity is within our grasp, and we must seize it. I want to emphasize that this agency will complement international credit rating agencies by filling in data and analytical gaps. In other words,
historic it is.
It will do the heavy lifting that international rating agencies may lack the time, inclination, or capacity to undertake. I see the role of Africa credit rating agencies as one of demystifying and democratizing sovereign credit assessments. It it must develop a methodology that is objective, transparent, and replicable, rooted in the rigor of science rather than the exclusivity of tradecraft. Let me commend the United Nations Development Programme and AfriCatalyst for stepping forward to support African nations in strengthening their creditworthiness. This is the kind of partnership that we need, rooted in action. I leave you with the words of African Development Bank President Akiwumi Adesina, and I quote, "The perception of risk is not the reality of risk. Wrong scales will always give wrong weights." End of quote. It is time for Africa to use the right scales, one that reflects its true weight. The African Credit Rating Agency will do just that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, on your call for Africa to rewrite its history.
Excellencies, heads of state and government, Your Excellency Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Mohamed Abbas, President of the State of Palestine, Your Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Honorable Mia Montri, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chairperson of the Caribbean Community, Your Excellency Dr. Adesina Akinwumi, President of the African Development Bank, Excellencies, First Ladies, Honorable Ministers here present, Your Excellency Dr. Monique Sazabagana, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies Commissioners of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Abdul Hassam Jacob Aziz, Deputy Secretary General of the League of Arab States, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors here present, heads of African Union organs and regional economic communities and mechanisms, I also recognize the presence of our partners, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the press, and all distinguished delegates, all protocols observed. May I now kindly call the Excellency Chairperson of African Union to call this meeting to order. Your Excellency, you have the floor. Thank you.
Excellence, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Premier ministre de la République démocratique d'Éthiopie, notre hôte, honorable chef d'État et de gouvernement, et chers collègues, Excellence Moussa Faki Mohamed, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, je souhaite une chaleureuse bienvenue à tous les chefs d'État et de gouvernement et les hauts représentants des États membres et à nos distingués invités. Je voudrais aussi exprimer notre appréciation pour votre présence. Je suis heureux de déclarer ouverts les travaux de la 38e session ordinaire de la conférence de l'Union africaine. Et pour commencer, mesdames et messieurs, je vous invite à vous lever pour observer une minute de silence à la suite de la disparition d'un grand combattant pour la liberté, Monsieur Samu Nujoma, père fondateur de la Namibie. Donc je vous remercie. Merci.
Je souhaite maintenant inviter le protocole de la Commission à nous décliner le déroulement de la cérémonie d'ouverture.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I humbly call all of you to rise for the African Union Anthem. Thank you. Your Excellency Muhammad Wil Sheikh Al Ghazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and Chairperson of the African Union. Your Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Your Excellencies, heads of states and governments of African Union member states. Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission. Your Excellency Mr. Mahmoud Abbas Abu Mazin, President of the State of Palestine. Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Your Excellency Maya Moore Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados. Your Excellencies, distinguished former presidents here present, Honorable Fairest Ladies here present, Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellency Dr. Monique Nzanza Baganwa, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellencies, Commissioners, and all the leadership of the Commission, Excellencies, Ambassadors, members of the Permanent Representatives Committee, Your Excellency Mina Wamakela, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, Your Excellency Madame Nardos Bekele Thomas, Chief Executive Officer of the African Union Development Agency, AUDA-NIPAD, Your Excellency Dr. Jan Kaseya, Director General of the Africa CDC, Your Excellency Ambassador Marie-Antoinette Roscatre, Chief Executive Officer of the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, Your Excellency Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs of the Republic of South Africa, former Chairperson of the African Union Commission. Your Excellencies, heads of United Nations specialized agencies and international organizations here present. سعادة نائب الأمين العام لجامعة الدول العربية ممثل الأمين العام. Your Excellency Luis Moshikiu Abo, Secretary General of the International Organization of La Francophonie. Your Excellency Dr. Warkena Yibihu, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. Your Excellencies, heads of COMISA, ECOWAS, SINSAT, EAC, ECAS, SADC, and UMMA. Your Excellency Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group, a strong believer of the African development and prosperity. Your Excellencies Dr. Benedict Oki Orama, President of the Afri-Exim Bank. Your Excellency Dr. Sidi Wildeta, President of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Badia. معالي الشيخ شخبوط نهيان آل نهيان وزير الدولة بدولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة. Excellencies, permanent observer representatives to the African Union, and Excellencies, representatives of our partners to the African Union. All protocol observed, members of the press, a very good morning to you all. It gives me immense honor and pleasure to welcome you all to the opening ceremony of the 38th ordinary session of the AU Assembly of Heads of States and Governments, being held today at the Nelson Mandela Hall, the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, the capital of Africa. Addis Ababa, a vibrant city that has been at the heart of the Pan-African diplomacy and multilateralism, stands as a symbol of Africa's unity and progress. As a host nation of the African Union, Ethiopia plays a crucial role in fostering continental dialogue and advancing African integration. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the 38th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of States and Governments of the African Union holds significant importance, as it will oversee the elections of the chairperson and the deputy chairperson of the African Union Commission. Over the past years, the African Union has made remarkable progress in conflict resolution, mediation, and peacekeeping efforts, contributing to greater stability across the continent. Economic transformation has been further strengthened through the African Continental Free Trade Area and accession to the G20, contributing towards the implementation of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, having said so, the program of today's opening ceremony will stand as follows. We will have a statement by His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, followed by a statement by His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, following which a statement by His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. We shall then have a statement by His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, President of the State of Palestine. Then His Excellency Mahmoud will Sheikh Al-Ghazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and Chairperson of the African Union, will make his opening remarks. Immediately after that, we will call the Dean of African Ambassadors in Ethiopia to introduce the new Bureau, members of the African Union Assembly, following which we shall have the handover ceremony for the chairperson of the African Union. Then we will go to the launch of the African Union theme of the year, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations. Without any further ado, I have the great honor and privilege to invite His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency, the floor is yours. Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, President Mohammed Ould, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished ministers, ambassadors, diplomats, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ethiopia, the cradle of Pan-Africanism and a proud champion of African unity and freedom. It is an honor to stand before you today as we reflect on the immense potential we hold, not just as individual nations, but as a united and dynamic continent. In a world marked by rapid change and multiple challenges, we find ourselves at a crossroads of uncertainty and opportunity. This moment calls upon us to strengthen our collective resolve, embrace resilience, and foster unity across Africa. The theme for this year's assembly calls on us to heal the scars of historical injustice and overcome lingering trauma that has long hindered our progress. The demand for reparations is not about charity or financial aid. It is a call for justice. It seeks to restore the dignity of millions and heal the deep scars of poverty, inequality, and discrimination. It demands an end to the systematic exploitation of our wealth, resources, and opportunities. It also calls for a transformative process that acknowledges past harms and takes bold steps to right the wrongs caused upon us, upon society across the continent. Thank you. Thank you. Most importantly, the call for reparations requires not just words, but concrete actions to affirm the equal worth of every human being. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to achieve lasting peace, justice, and prosperity, we must rise above the geopolitical tensions and the historical divisions imposed upon us by colonial borders. By fostering solidarity among all of our nations and embracing a shared destiny, we can pool our resources and talents to unlock our continent's full potential. Africa's cultural, ethnic, and linguistic diversity is a source of pride and strength upon which we must build inclusive governance and equitable development. Conflict resolution, diplomacy, and peace building must remain at the heart of our efforts. By championing African solutions to African challenges, we can secure lasting peace and stability. Let us celebrate our achievements in politics, science, economics, and arts. Strategic initiatives such as the African Continental Free Trade Area give us the tools to boost intra-Africa trade, reduce external dependency, and achieve self-reliance. With Africa's large and dynamic use, abundant natural resources, and growing technological innovations, we have all the means to ensure sustainable growth. The rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI, offers unprecedented opportunities to transform our economies and societies. By collaborating in AI, fintech, renewable energy, and mobile technology, we can address shared challenges such as climate change, infrastructure gaps, and public health crisis. Africa's rich and diverse data sets are essential for training robust and inclusive AI models. This highlights the importance of African representation in shaping future technologies. However, as we embrace these advancements, it's essential to protect our data sovereignty, prevent digital exploitation, and develop homegrown AI solutions that reflect African values and contexts. As our data sets grow, so must our capacity to harness them for local and global good. When used responsibly, AI can be a powerful tool in conflict prevention, transparent governance, and inclusive development. Africa must actively participate in the global technology race to ensure we are competitive players in the evolving digital landscape, while also ensuring we benefit equitably from this technological revolution. Furthermore, Africa's voice on global issues must grow stronger, ensuring that we have a say in shaping governance frameworks and other much-needed reforms in the global order. By empowering grassroots movements, youth networks, and educational programs focused on digital literacy and technological innovation, we can inspire the next generation. This will ensure Africa stands not just as a beneficiary of a global advancement, but as a key contributor in shaping the future of humanity. Excellencies, the opportunities before us are immense. Ethiopia is determined to prosper, guided by a vision of vibrant democracy, sustainable economic growth, rich cultural heritage, social progress, and a deep commitment to environmental regeneration. To realize this goal, we have laid out a pragmatic roadmap rooted in the transformative principles of Madamar. Madamar, an Amharic term loosely translated as synergy, is our guiding philosophy. It is a homegrown ideology that promotes prosperity, unity, sovereignty, security, and national dignity. At its core, Madamar encourages social and economic advancement, celebrates diversity, and nurtures a spirit of community grounded in Ethiopia's rich culture, spirituality, and values. Reflecting on the progress of the past 5 years and building on the vision of Madamar, Ethiopia has made remarkable strides. Despite inheriting a nation deeply divided along ethnic lines, burdened by substantial debt, and facing numerous internal challenges, we have moved forward with determination. At the same time, we navigated a complex and ever-changing regional and international landscape. Yet, through resilience and cooperation, we continue to move closer to the realization of our shared vision of prosperity. Our achievements speak for themselves. Allow me to share a few highlights. We have reformed our political system, transforming into an inclusive multi-party framework that reflects the diversity of our nation. To deepen these reforms and foster cohesion, reconciliation, and peace, we are undertaking a national dialogue. On the economic front, we have built a resilient and diverse economy. Over the past 5 years, we have doubled our cultivated land, increasing crop production to nearly 700 million quintals, with the wheat accounting for 40% of this total. These efforts have strengthened food security and driven rural development. Today, Ethiopia is the largest wheat producer in Africa. Thank you. Through collective efforts, we have reduced external debt by over 50%, double both GDP and GDP per capita, and tripled government revenue in 5 years, with an 8.1% growth reported in the most recent fiscal year. Across the country, our major cities are evolving into dynamic, culturally rich, and sustainable hubs. In education, we have established 40,000 kindergartens and primary schools to boost early childhood education. Additionally, we have launched a program to train 5 million coders to strengthen our digital economy. Furthermore, we strive to honor our heritage by restoring national sites, developing tourist destinations, and reclaiming cultural artifacts, fulfilling our duty as the guardians of our nation's treasures. These accomplishments reflect the unwavering spirit and resilience of the Ethiopian people and underscore our firm commitment to advancing Ethiopia's future. With its focus on unity, cooperation, innovation, and shared progress, Madamar can serve as a guiding framework for our Pan-African agenda. By embracing its principles, we can forge a path toward a more just, equitable, and prosperous future for all Africans. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us march forward with determination, harnessing the limitless potential of our continent and its people. The time is now to claim our future, build a legacy of equality and prosperity, and secure dignity for all. Let us be the generation that unites the continent and our diaspora in a shared vision of justice, prosperity, and peace. To conclude, I thank our outgoing chairperson, President Muhammad Ould, for his leadership and representing our organization on the global stage. Allow me to also warmly congratulate our newly chairperson, President Joao Lorenzo, and wish him success during his tenure. I would also like to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat for his exemplary leadership as chairperson of the African Union Commission over the past 8 years. Throughout his tenure, His Excellency Musa Faki has shown unwavering commitment to Africa's development, peace, and integration, significantly strengthening the African Union's role in addressing the continent's challenge. I also extend my sincere thanks to him for being a steadfast friend of Ethiopia, supporting us not only during our times of success, but also in our moments of difficulty. Thank you, my brother. As we bid farewell to His Excellency Musa Faki, it is with great pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to our incoming chairperson of the African Union Commission here in Ethiopia. I am confident that under his leadership, we will continue to make great strides toward achieving our collective goals. I wish him every success during his mandate. Thank you for your attention, and I wish us all a fruitful summit. God bless Ethiopia. God bless Africa. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement, and thank you for the generous hospitality extended to our Excellencies, heads of states and governments, as well as distinguished delegates. Thank you. And now allow me to invite with great honor and pleasure His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, chairperson of the African Union Commission, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency.
Excellences, Monsieur Mohamed Ould-Cheikh Al-Ghazouani, président de la République islamique de Mauritanie, président en exercice de l'Union africaine, Excellence Dr Abiy Ahmed, Premier ministre de la République d'Éthiopie, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État, de gouvernement et de délégation, Excellences, Monsieur Mahmoud Abbas, président de l'État de Palestine, ma très chère sœur amie Mia, Premier ministre de Barbados, Excellence Monsieur Antonio Guterres, secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Dr Nkosazana Zuma, ancienne présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Madame la vice-présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs les commissaires, Mesdames et Messieurs les secrétaires généraux et exécutifs des communautés économiques régionales et mécanismes régionaux, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs exécutifs des organes et institutions spécialisées de l'Union africaine, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs des missions diplomatiques, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs. C'est à la fois avec un grand honneur et un immense plaisir que je m'adresse à vous aujourd'hui pour la dernière fois en ma qualité de président de la Commission de l'Union africaine. Je voudrais tout d'abord, puisque nous sommes encore au début de l'année nouvelle 2025, présenter à vos excellences, vos familles et vos peuples, au nom de tous les personnels de l'Union africaine, mes meilleurs vœux de santé, de prospérité et de succès. Je voudrais aussi exprimer mes sincères remerciements aux présidents en exercice avec lesquels j'ai successivement travaillé ces 8 dernières années. J'ai nommé dans l'ordre de leur présidence Alpha Condé, Paul Kagame, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Cyril Ramaphosa, Antoine Félix Tshisekedi, Macky Sall, Azali Assoumani et Mohamed Ould-Cheikh Al-Ghazouani. En cet instant de remembrance, je ne peux oublier le président Idriss Déby Itnou, paix à son âme, qui, en africaniste convaincu, a eu l'initiative de ma candidature à la tête de la Commission et qui s'est investi sans compter pour un tel destin pour moi. Sa mort tragique a été ma plus atroce douleur de ce double mandat. Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs, 8 ans se sont écoulés depuis mon élection fin janvier 2017 comme président de la Commission de l'Union africaine. En ces moments chargés d'historicité, de signification et de symboles, je voudrais m'acquitter du devoir moral de vous présenter les grandes lignes du bilan de ce double mandat. Grâce à ces parcours, je me suis profondément imprégné à la fois de ce qui fait la grandeur et le rayonnement de notre continent, de notre organisation continentale, ainsi que des pesanteurs et limites diverses ayant entraîné le rythme de nos cadences. J'ai sillonné ce beau et fantastique continent. J'éprouve une profonde fierté d'avoir visité au moins une fois.
We must not absolutely abuse of your precious time. A consolidated report of our achievements and an annual report have been distributed to you in accordance with our regulations. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the rapid and intense geopolitical upheavals that have characterized the international context during my 2 terms of office have both violent and destabilizing manifestations. The sudden deterioration of the health situation following the outbreak of COVID-19 was unfortunately accompanied by major shocks and profound economic and diplomatic turbulence. For Africa, this resulted in an increase in the debt burden, a decline in public and private investment flows, violence and the prevalence of some African conflicts, the collapse of Pan-Africanism and the chains of African solidarity, manifestations of the obsolescence of African institutions, external appetites in Africa, obvious deficiencies in governance and leadership in Africa and even in the world, and the crisis of multilateralism after the Second World War, and so on, and so on. The Russia-Ukraine war, which began in February 2022, further darkened this picture, announcing a global geopolitical reconfiguration. A split emerged that resurrected a form of bipolarity, which in political imaginations brings to mind the theoretically outdated reality of the Cold War. Deep uncertainties about the sustainability of peace and international cooperation have poisoned the minds, darkened the conscience, and reinforced the pessimism, selfishness, and mercantile pragmatism. The consequences of this war deeply affected Africa, which imported most of its cereal consumption and agricultural inputs from these 2 countries, that is Russia and Ukraine. The specter of food and health insecurity hung over many of our countries, many of which continue to suffer from their structural fragilities. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, in the Middle East, the brotherly people of Palestine suffered and continues to suffer one of the worst injustices in the history of mankind, the horrible and unjust war which completely destroyed everything in Gaza and Palestine, particularly in Gaza, to deprive this people of its fundamental rights to independence, peace, existence, and to life, in an indescribable shame for the whole of mankind. In spite of all this, these valiant Palestinian people remained stoic, and the African Union remained firmly by the side of the Palestinian people. I want to express to our brother, Abu Mazin Mahmoud Ahmadan, our solidarity. This apocalyptic landscape that Palestine, the Gaza Strip, and its population, in particularly after more than a year of war, destroying all forms of life and property, continues to unfold in almost total silence of the powers of the world, except for the call by some for the systematic deportation of Palestinians from their lands. It is really adding insult to injury. This unprecedented tragedy weighs heavily despite the ceasefire and the release of hostages and prisoners facilitated by Qatar, Egypt, and the USA on the universal conscience and deeply questions our humanity. The stronghold of increased, stifling, dehumanized globalization does not leave Africa outside the hegemonic struggles that are taking place far from its land. On the contrary, the continent is suffering from the excesses and fragmentations reflected in proximity conflicts, barely veiled the support from external powers, from the warring parties on the continent, the expansion of terrorism and violent extremism, the continuation of the devastating war in the Sudan, in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, the divisions of Libya, whose reconciliation charter was signed and adopted yesterday, and I would like to congratulate you, President Sassou Nguesso. Tensions of all kinds in the Sahel, in the Lake Chad Basin, in the Gulf of Guinea, in Mozambique, in the Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region are another part of the unsmoldering string of African crises. The flow of political, economic, environmental refugees and other internally displaced persons is exacerbating the already fragile security, food, and health situation in many member states. It is this seriously degraded global and regional context that we have been facing over the past 8 years of the development of our action. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, ladies and gentlemen, the institutional reform of our Union, which began in 2017, aimed at establishing the optimal condition to guarantee the efficient pursuit of the programs included in our strategic doctrinal guiding compass Agenda 2063 for the purpose of better resistance to the challenges that were identified. In this regard, the reconfiguration of the leadership, a staff performance evaluation process, closer cooperative relationship between the African Union and the regional economic communities and the regional mechanisms enacted by a new protocol, the institutionalization of a coordination summit dedicated to integration, the establishment of the technical groups R10 and N15, responsible to ensuring the quality of human resources recruited and compliance with the golden rules of budgetary, financial, and accounting management principles of the African Union have been the salient features of this reform. And but is without any complacency, we'll have a new institutional map of the Union. I'm here stressing 3 of these organs: the Pan-African Parliament, the Peace and Security Council, and the Permanent Representatives Committee. The overall movement of the reform, with its shadows and lights, confirms its relevance and its necessary progressive nature to be deployed over the long term. It is a requirement for the perpetual adaptation of the structures of our Union to the developments that characterize the world. I would like to thank President Paul Kagame and President William Ruto for their remarkable efforts to move this reform forward. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, an assessment of the first 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063, covering the period 2014 to 2023, reveals the sectoral progress made in our march towards building the Africa that we want. It is crucial to learn the real lesson and make the appropriate subsequent adjustments. In the field of health, it is a holistic approach translated on the ground into actions crowned with success. With the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, Africa CDC established itself as the most effective instrument in the fight of all diseases. The worrying issue of health financing continues to be a source of concern for us. 2 mechanisms for financing universal health coverage and combating malnutrition on the continent have been designed. Thanks to the African Veterinary Vaccine Center, PANVAC, whose new vaccine production laboratory was inaugurated in February 2024, significant progress has been made in the areas of livestock, animal health, and socio-economic development. The African Medicines Agency, AMA, has begun setting up its headquarters in Kigali and its activities on the launching pad. The traditional medicine has benefited from the development of 2 10-year plans of action, the last one running from 2025 to 2035. The field of education has been driven by the desire to design a new educational system according to the requirements of a world where the major challenge has now become competition around scientific and technological innovation, and now by artificial intelligence. It is in line with this spirit that diverse and complementary strategies have been developed, notably during the Nouakchott conference in 2024, initiated by the current chairman, Mauritania, in cooperation with the African Union Commission and other partners, including UNICEF and UNESCO in particular. The centrality of gender and youth issues have been affirmed. The special envoys for women and youth have established themselves well in the institutional universe of the leadership of the organization. Throughout the 8 years of these 2 terms, many other crucial areas engaged the attention they deserved due to their importance for the socio-economic development of Africa. Whether it is our vision on mining issues, the comprehensive agriculture program and the blue economy, the development of infrastructure and energy, climate change with adaptation and climate resilience of the continent, regional integration through the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the effective operationalization of the Peace Fund, which has exceeded the set target of $400 million, the treatment of humanitarian crisis of which Africa is the epicenter, with the establishment of the African Humanitarian Agency, the strengthening of the visibility of the African Union through our partnership with the United Nations, all have been at the center of our collective endeavor. I would like to seize this opportunity to pay special tribute to a major architect of this partnership. I'm here referring to Antonio Guterres, a great friend of Africa. Thank you, Antonio. The membership of the African Union, the G20, and the BRICS, of which several African countries are members, have crowned this visibility. On all these issues, the specialized structure of the African Union and the member states have carried out in-depth discussions and outlined clear prospects for some and given concrete form to many others. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a few months ago I sent to Your Excellencies a letter relating to some urgent issues at the heart of the future of our Union and its capacity to attain as best as possible our objectives. I'm here thinking first of the Peace and Security Council, which I mentioned earlier on, and its role should be carried out on the basis of texts that govern its function, its operation, from which it draws the strength and legitimacy to design, supervise the pressing issues of our collective security and impose, if necessary, the required sanctions. It is very regrettable that its decisions are sometimes contrary to our own principles, and when they are not, often remain dead letters. The decision of this central continental organ cannot be considered in a casual manner, nor by bias the concept and practice of these regional economic communities in the name of the hackneyed principle of subsidiarity interpreted in a self-interest and partisan manner. The mentioning of the PSC brings forth the issue of unconstitutional changes of government. In this regard, I mention in the said letter that we have only 2 options henceforth. Either abandon the principles that currently govern this issue or apply them seriously. Notwithstanding the fact that we can revise them, adapt them to the new realities, I think for our own credibility, we should continue to establish these principles like a litany while trampling on them and accepting their flagrant and constant violation. There is nothing that eats more into our credibility than such an attitude, which has recently led to a real distrust in the rules and principles and weakened the integration in part of the continent. I am here mentioning the persistent and paralyzing slump of our unbearable division in terms of representation in relation to our so-called strategic partnerships. I drew attention, and I draw again attention here, to choose one of the two options that are presented to us and which I presented in clear terms in my letter. I had also mentioned the recurring issue of the financing of our organization, which paradoxically contrasts with the continuing trends of multiplication of organs without any concern for how to finance them. An independent organization and guardian of our freedom and sovereignty cannot be built with the finances and resources by others. I had also raised the depriving reduction of the initiatives of the chairperson of the African Union Commission and called for its harmonization with the legal and customary obligations that are now imposed on him. In short, the sense of my correspondence is very simple and maybe brutal. It is the question of placing our organization worthily or not before a terrible combination of factors of complexity. These are all the problems that you are facing today that I wanted to raise very modestly in my letter. Are we finally going to open our eyes to the fate of our organization, or are we continue to let it lament and moan? Excellency Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a commonplace truth today to affirm that the concepts and legal instruments serving as a framework of analyzing the dynamics of contemporary international politics are outdated. They have lost their both structuring and explanatory virtue of current global phenomena. Such an observation explains why the debates today focus on the modalities for the advent of a new global economic and political governance. Africa cannot remain silent and inactivity. It must imperatively throw itself into the battle to carve out its own place in the configuration currently being designed. It is not easy. It will require ingenuity, creativity, method, and courage. More generally, this will require real redemption for an awakening of the consciousness and conscience of the soul of Pan-Africanism, that of our awareness of our Africanity, that of the pride of our Africanity, that of the commitment to our Africanity, that of the rejection of our depersonalization and our nihilistic servility of our identity and our being. This is what African youth are calling for us to do. They are the majority in all our states and are becoming increasingly demanding. Their voices are resonating louder and louder thanks to the new forms of communication that amplify all expressions. African youth are constantly challenging us and putting us on trial for being out of step with their aspirations, which are that of an Africa that is open to itself, united, sovereign in its policies and choices, standing and interdependent. This solidarity has always been our lifeline in the fight against colonialism and apartheid and the completion of our independence. We have just paid tribute to the memory of a great combatant, Sam Nujoma. This should bring something and click something in our minds. Our solidarity should galvanize our consciences, our wills and our intelligence to lead us to a more promising common destiny. There are no other new path for our future than to listen and to give substance to the aspirations of our youth, our fellow citizens and our diaspora. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am leaving my office definitively in a few days. I confess that I feel overwhelmed by a sweet feeling of freedom that allows me to say a few words from the bottom of my heart. The first is a word of deep gratitude to your Excellencies for the trust that you have placed in me by electing me for 2 successive terms as the chairperson of the African Union Commission. You must rest assured that I have measured and I continue to measure all the dimensions of this trust and the heavy weight of subsequent gratitude and acknowledgement. The second word concerns the other one and me. In the other one, I'm thinking of our partners, especially those who have offered a sincere friendship and mutually beneficial cooperation. I want to thank them all and express our gratitude. I am also thinking of you present here, those who have left us also for different reasons. You have realized good and great things, and above all, as far as possible, respected a certain ethic and a line of conduct that we have believed to be consistent with our principles. Please accept my full gratitude. The members of the African Union Commission are the men and women that have worked very often in the shadows with diligence, dedication, discipline, and talent. I would like to pay tribute to them, the tribute that they deserve. The third word relates to my own limitations. I wanted so much to do quickly and better during the 2 terms that you entrusted to me. I know that I have not done everything. Perhaps I underestimated the burden of the task and the weight of the constraints. I know that I may have made mistakes. I should not say perhaps, but I should say certainly I've made mistakes. Maybe here and there I have weakened and made mistakes and missed opportunities to do better. I would like to apologize and ask forgiveness if my shortcomings have caused any individual or collective harm. The fourth word relates to my feelings at the moment. I am happy to regain my freedom, but I know that we'll also have the nostalgia of the places, the women and men whom I have known, for the Ethiopian people, with their age-old civilization. To you, my brother, dear brother Abiy Ahmed, Amasaganalo. Maybe we'll have time to write the history of all this tangle of feelings and sensations. Finally, my fifth word is that of my oath to continue to think of Africa, to serve Africa, to dream for its youth for whom we have not done enough and for whom we must do a lot, because after all, it is they who count today and more so tomorrow. A final word to you, Mr. President, Chairperson, and Mr. President, dear brother Sheikh Al-Ghazwani, to tell you how much I appreciated your close relation throughout your mandate. You have been a master of wisdom, civic-mindedness, and loftiness, inspiring in all respects. To you, Mr. President, and dear brother Joao Lorenzo, and I would like to stress that the quiet strength that you symbolize reassures me about a chairmanship of seriousness and substance. May you both in particular, and all of us, have an active thought for the great prisoner of the Sahel, President Mohamed Bazoum, whose interminable detention is not justified. He must be released unconditionally. I wish full success to our summit. I wish full success to our next leadership. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your statement. Thank you for your unwavering commitment. Thank you for dedication towards Africa's peace, development, and unity. Thank you very much. I will now have the honor to invite His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency.
Monsieur le Président de l'Union africaine, Excellences, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, thank you for your leadership in the outstanding exercise of your mandate. Presidente João Lourenço, parabéns e aguardo com expectativa a oportunidade de trabalhar consigo como novo Presidente da União Africana. I also want to give a very special expression of gratitude to the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, for his 8 years of strong and permanent commitment to multilateralism and impeccable cooperation with the United Nations. Cher Moussa, travailler avec toi est un privilège, un plaisir et un honneur. Excellencies, the partnership between the African Union and the United Nations has never been stronger. Together, we see an Africa booming with hope and possibility. You have a booming, enterprising population, including the largest number of young people in the world. The African continental free trade is poised to turbocharge the region's economy, and calls to address the legacies of colonialism and slavery are growing louder, as reflected in your theme this year, and as reflected in the leadership of so many passionate voices for the liberation of Africa, such as the great Dr. Sam Nujoma of Namibia, whose life we celebrate and whose loss we mourn. The world must never forget that Africa is the victim of 2 colossal and compounded injustices. First, the profound impact of colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. The roots stretch back centuries, and the bitter fruit continues to affect Africans and people of African descent to this day. Decolonization alone in itself was not a panacea. Political independence did not free countries from structures based on exploitation and decades of economic, social, and institutional underinvestment. It is high time for reparatory justice frameworks to be put in place. Second, Africa was under colonial domination when today's multilateral system was created, and that injustice endures. Look no further than the United Nations Security Council. There is no excuse that Africa still lacks permanent representation in the 21st century. I will keep working with the African Union and all member states to ensure the representation Africa needs and the justice you deserve, including with 2 permanent members of the Security Council. And we will keep pressing together for an international financial architecture that is no longer outdated, dysfunctional, and unfair. Correcting age-old injustices is essential to address here and now challenges. And the good news is that we have many of the solutions we need. Last year, you helped drive that effort at the United Nations with the Pact for the Future. And I thank Africa for its support that was vital to approve the pact. Our task now is to make those commitments a reality. South Africa's G20 chairmanship could not come at a better time. Let me point to 4 areas for action. First, we must push for peace, security, and alleviating appalling levels of human suffering. Sudan is being torn apart before our eyes and is now home to the world's largest displacement crisis and famine. As we near the holy months of Ramadan, it is time for an immediate cessation of hostilities. And the international community must come together to stop the flow of weapons and the bankrolling of bloodshed. In the Democratic Republic of the Congolese people have been suffering yet again from a brutal cycle of violence. And the fighting that is raging in South Kivu as a result of the continuation of the M23 offensive threatens to push the entire region over the precipice. Regional escalation must be avoided at all costs. There is no military solution. The deadlock must end, the dialogue must begin, and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC must be respected. The conclusions of the recent joint EAC-SADC summit offer a way forward, with a renewed call for an immediate ceasefire and new momentum for regional efforts based on the Luanda and Nairobi processes. Now is the time for swift implementation. And you can count on the continued support of the United Nations, including MONUSCO. In the Sahel, the clear and present threat of terrorism is undermining peace, security, and sustainable development. And in Somalia, we are urging predictable funding for the African Union support and stabilization mission, and I hope that our voice will be heard by the Security Council. And as we gather here in Africa, I know all our minds are also very much on Gaza. A resumption of hostilities must be avoided at all costs. The Palestinian people have suffered too much. I welcome efforts by the parties to abide by the ceasefire agreement and urge action for a permanent ceasefire and the release of all hostages. Peace is possible in the Middle East, and that starts with tangible, irreversible, and permanent progress towards the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security. Excellencies, on all fronts, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the African Union to advance security, stability, human rights, and rule of law. Excellencies, second, we must keep working together to deliver the AU 2063 agenda and the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and drive action on finance. African countries pay up to 8 times more to borrow than developed countries, and 20 are in or at risk of debt distress. The Pact for the Future supports an international financial architecture reform to reflect today's economy, ensuring fair representation and urging effective action on debt relief. And I will stand with Africa as a matter of justice and to right the historic wrongs. Excellencies, third, the climate crisis. Climate disasters are tearing across Africa, destroying lives, upending livelihoods, devastating economies, and inflaming conflict. At the same time, the renewables revolution is unstoppable, and Africa is poised to become a global clean energy powerhouse. Yet, Today, Africa receives just 2% of global renewables investment. Realizing Africa's potential requires access to affordable finance, including by implementing the COP29 finance decision fully and on time, and supporting development of a roadmap to realize $1.3 trillion a year. Excellencies, Africa has contributed little to the climate crisis, yet is paying the price with record droughts, floods, and heat. Climate justice requires a massive investment in adaptation, with the international community bearing an enormous responsibility. Developed countries must double adaptation finance, and countries must significantly boost the loss and damage fund. Allow me a note. When the loss and damage fund was created, the pledging conference that took place has allowed for an amount that is equivalent at the highest contract for a basketball player in the United States. It is absolutely necessary to make the loss and damage fund an effective instrument to support developing countries in adaptation. And we also need justice when it comes to your abundant critical minerals. Too often, your countries are plundered, bound to the bottom of value chains as others grow rich on your resources. The work of the United Nations Panel on Critical Energy Transition Minerals is designed to help embed justice, sustainability, and human rights across the value chain. Africa's minerals must benefit Africa's people. Excellences, enfin, nous devons agir dans le domaine des nouvelles technologies, notamment l'intelligence artificielle. Près de 2/3 de la population africaine sont privés d'un accès fiable à l'Internet. Nous avons une responsabilité historique, faire en sorte que l'intelligence artificielle profite à l'humanité tout entière et pas seulement à quelques privilégiés, États et compagnie. Le pacte numérique mondial partage les ambitions du pacte numérique africain. Connectivité universelle, renforcement des capacités et une gouvernance responsable de l'intelligence artificielle. Je présenterai bientôt un rapport sur les modèles innovants de financement volontaire et les initiatives de renforcement des capacités afin d'aider les pays du Sud global à exploiter l'intelligence artificielle pour le bien commun. Ensemble, assurons-nous que les promesses seront tenues. Excellences, l'Union africaine et l'ONU sont unis et déterminés à rendre justice à votre continent sans laisser personne de côté. Nous disposons de bases solides pour aller de l'avant. Alors, ensemble, concrétisons ces engagements. Et permettez-moi de dire une dernière phrase dans ma langue maternelle. Digamos com uma só voz, viva África!
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. We highly appreciate your leadership in strengthening the African Union United Nations partnership. Thank you. السيدات والسادة أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي، يسعدني ويشرفني أن أرحب اليوم بفخامة السيد الرئيس محمود عباس أبو مازن رئيس دولة فلسطين، فلتتفضلوا مشكورين بإلقاء كلمتكم.
خلص ايوه ايوه
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة الرئيس محمد ولد الغزواني رئيس جمهورية موريتانيا رئيس القمة
the
الإفريقية
Republic of Mauritania and the chairperson of the African Union, Excellency Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Mr. Abiy Ahmed, Excellency Moussa Faki, chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. At the outset, I wish to extend our congratulations to Excellency President João Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, for becoming the chairperson of the African Union for the year 2025. We wish him full success. We extend our thanks to His Excellency President Mohammed Ould El-Ghazouani for his chairmanship of the previous session of the African Union. I'm very happy to meet once again with you and on behalf of the Palestinian people, who have a great deal of esteem to the people and the leaders of African states. We are proud of our friendship with them. They have always provided to us a faithful support to our just struggle for freedom and independence. Heads of state and delegation. At the time when we are working with countries in the world and international organizations to consolidate the ceasefire and provide more humanitarian assistance, and at a time when the state of Palestine is fulfilling its mission in the Gaza Strip to assist the refugees and to go back to their areas and to provide the living conditions for our people, and to, as we are preparing for the reconstruction, we hear calls for deporting our people from their lands and affecting the sovereignty of other countries. These calls are meant to distract the world from the war crimes and the genocide and the destruction in Gaza, in addition to the crimes of colonization and the settlers grab land and annexation, in addition to attacks against holy shrines in the occupied territories and Jerusalem. These are carried out by the forces of occupation and the gangs of settlers. The aim is to destroy the possibility of a two-state solution for the Palestinian cause. Today, more than 2,300,000 people live in Gaza, including 1,500,000 refugees, 1,500,000 refugees who were forced to leave their country in 1948. They suffered from more than 50 massacres by the terrorist Zionist gangs. The only place they can go back to is their cities and villages from which they were expelled during the Nakba. in implementation of UN Resolution 194, which calls for the return of Palestinian refugees to the cities and the villages from which they were deported, and that they would be compensated for the harm they suffered. We reaffirm our complete rejection for all the calls aimed at deporting the Palestinian people from its land. This will keep the region in the cycle of violence instead of going to peace creation. It is an illusion for people to believe that they can have a new century agreement or to deport our people by occupying our land. In this regard, we hail the positions of the countries that rejected the calls for deporting our people from their land and stood by our side to defend their rights. We highly hail the position of the African Union and its member states in this regard. The Israeli colonial practices mean that we need to have an urgent action by the international community and the Security Council before the forces of radicalism disseminate to kill the two-state solution. Heads of state and delegation, the Palestinian cause is the cause of a people seeking freedom and independence. Our commitment to international legality and the signed agreements, including the implementation of the vision based on a two-state solution, mean that we need to end the Israeli occupation that occupies with military power the land of the state of Palestine and its Al-Quds, the eastern part of Al-Quds. There is the UN Resolution 338, also UN Resolution 242, and the Arab Peace Initiative, whose aim is to enable the people of the region to live in peace and security. All of this in implementation of the consultative opinion of the International Court of Justice, which has stipulated the illegality of occupation and that it should be ended in 12 months. This was decided by the International Court of Justice. There's also the decision by the UN General Assembly and the call for a conference that will take place in Geneva next month. I call upon the AU member states on this occasion to participate in this important conference. Heads of government and delegation, the achievement of peace and security requires from all of us to effectively participate in the global alliance to implement the two-state solution and to support the international conference for peace that will take place in the United Nations by the middle of next June. Under the dual chairmanship of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and France. This will be an opportunity to mobilize international resources for the international recognition of the state of Palestine Palestine and to obtain our full membership in the United Nations. We have not been able to achieve this because of the vetoes of the United States. Our aim is to implement the two-state solution based on international legality. The holding of the AU summit and the theme of justice through compensation reflects your authentic commitment to justice as a universal human value. It is a commitment whose echoes are seen in your continuous support to the Palestinian people who are still suffering from the last form of colonization in the world. We are the only ones living under colonization. You lived under this colonization, but you were liberated. Finally, we reiterate our thanks to the African Union and the member states for their continued support to the struggle of the Palestinian people to cherish their freedom and independence. And we wish your summit full success and more prosperity for the African people and their free peoples. Thank you very much for your attention.
فخامة رئيس دولة فلسطين أبو مازن على خطابكم الضافي، إن مشاركتكم تؤكد من هذا to invite His Excellency Muhammad Wil Sheikh Al-Ghazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and chairperson of the African Union, to deliver his opening remarks. Excellency.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد. أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي رؤساء الدول والحكومات.
Heads of state and government, Excellency Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, President of the State of Palestine, Mrs. Mia Mutli, heads of government and delegation, Excellencies, Ministers, Excellencies, Ambassadors, dear guests. At the outset, I wish to extend my thanks to the government and the people of Ethiopia for the efforts made to hold this summit. We thank them for the support and the hospitality accorded to us in this beautiful city of Addis Ababa, which saw the establishment of our organization as inspired by the founding fathers, to have an Africa that is peaceful and united. I'm very happy to reiterate my thanks to my brothers, the presidents of the member states of the African Union for the honor bestowed in me for chairing this organization throughout my mandate. I also extend my thanks to the presidents of countries and who are with us to attend this important meeting at the beginning of 2025. This year raises a number of questions. Thank you, Excellencies, heads of government. My chairmanship of the African Union has taken place at an international period that is highly sensitive. This also coincided by our adoption of the second decade plan within the framework of Agenda 2063. It represents a plan for development for member states and the regional economic communities and the various organs of the African Union. By adopting this decade plan, we can see our solid commitment to meet the aspirations of our peoples to have the Africa that we all want, in spite of the obstacles and in spite of all the challenges. And these challenges are tremendous. When I became fully aware of the volume of the commitment and the responsibility, today our world is witnessing various crises. These are where we have more areas of conflict, and tensions have jeopardized relations between countries. They have also jeopardized the values on which the world system has been established since the Second World War. After a particular period of the development of international organizations and our belief in a more just world, the references went back and hopes collapsed, and now there is a revision of the international system in a way and that the contours are not clear. For a number of years, unfortunately, bloodshed continues. Many people found themselves in difficult humanitarian situations. The world has witnessed a level of violence unprecedented since the Second World War. Palestine is what Palestine is facing is a good example of this. This global situation is made more complex and complicated by the wars in Africa. These crises, global and continental, have had a negative impact on the efforts of development in our continent, where there are tremendous challenges such as poverty, unemployment, and the weakness of health systems and the weak economic structures, in addition to the impact of climate change, the dissemination of terrorism. All of this is having an impact on peace and security. It is destroying the social fabric of our communities. In my previous speech, I committed myself to work on these challenges, and I worked during my term on respecting the rules and regulations of the African Union. All of this in full harmony with the AU Commission and the regional economic communities and the regional organs. Our aim was to consolidate the efforts of peace and to reach peace on the basis of dialogue by supporting the valuable efforts made by Excellency Ngasso, President Ngasso, at the head of the African High-Level Committee on Libya. I also continued work with President Paul Kagame and President Tshisekedi to deal with the situation in Eastern DRC. In 2024, Mauritania hosted the third meeting to consolidate the peace initiative in Sudan. We also met General Al-Burhan on the 13th and the 14th of January 2025, and the aim was to end the hostilities in Sudan and to protect its peoples and territories. In spite of the efforts made by the Union and the regional economic communities and the member states, the establishment of comprehensive peace in our continent remains to be achieved. Therefore, I call for the implementation of the decisions made by the Malabo decisions in 2022. On the basis of the work of the PSC, and this can be done in at 4 levels: harmonization, financial sustainability. All of this will meet the ongoing security challenges. All of this will enable us the possibility to explore more effective solutions to achieve peace and security. We need to identify the appropriate mechanisms that should enable us to settle the challenges of peace and security. In this context, we need the efforts of each one of us as part of a collective effort in order to meet these challenges. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we gave a great deal of attention to the agenda of development during our term. We endeavored to mobilize resources by organizing or participating in a number of meetings. We organized with His Excellency Samuel Ruto in the Nairobi summit to support the resource mobilization. We consolidated this with our work with President Hassan Ouattara on the occasion of the economic summit held in Abidjan. This represented a landmark in resource mobilization for our organization. The efforts of support have led to renewing the mobilization of resources. We also participated in the work of the to mobilize more resources from Korea for the benefit of development. The volume reached for Africa from $5.5 billion to $10 billion, in addition to $14 billion to finance exports for countries investing in our continent. In addition to the 4th edition of the China-Africa Summit at the level of the heads of state. China declared to devote $50 billion to boost development in our continent. In addition to the efforts made for resource mobilization, we endeavored during our participation in the 7th meeting in Italy and the BRICS meeting in Russia in October. Also in our meeting in Brazil in November 24, in addition to other events, we endeavored to solve the problem of debt by promoting development. We also called for the review of the support and we called for establishing a new charter for financing development that would be more flexible and sustainable and would lead to the mobilization of resources that are commensurate with development. We also called for a better implementation of plans by the multi-party financial organizations for the benefit of development. and to implement our international agenda. In addition to resource mobilization, in order to promote development, we endeavored to turn our resources into an effective and sustainable development that can meet the faced challenges. These challenges have been worsened by the various crises. In this context, and in line with what was indicated, we called for a more flexibility to enable people to access education. In line with the theme for last year, we had this meeting in Mauritania in collaboration with the African Union, a continental meeting on education and employment of youths. This meeting was held in Nouakchott. The aim was to integrate youth and employment, and to youth represent the majority of the people, and these youths face the dangers of violence, radicalization, and illegal migration. I call upon the summit to adopt the Nouakchott Declaration because it calls for a sustainable education to support peace and security, and to create jobs, and to reduce unemployment and precarity. African youths need an effective educational and training system. They also, like other African citizens, need health systems that enable them to have access to good quality health care. This will enable them to deal with the arising health issues as witnessed in our continent, such as the smallpox, cholera, and the like. In this context, I would like to hail the work carried out by the Africa Disease Center in dealing with the Sudan health crisis. I congratulate Dr. Jankaya for the pioneering work done in this regard. Today, I will present a detailed report on this issue. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in line with the Dhaka Declaration on food security and the following, we held two exceptional meetings to consolidate the agricultural systems. The first meeting was held in Nairobi in May 2024. It dealt with soil and the use of fertilizers. And in January 25, there was also a meeting in Kampala to develop flexible agricultural systems. A strategy and an action plan were adopted in order to promote a comprehensive agricultural development for the years starting 2026. I invite the summit to adopt the declaration and the action plan, and the same applies to the declaration of Nairobi. The aim is to promote investment and develop agricultural industries. The focus on industry requires that we need to have an energy that is sufficient and at an acceptable cost. We held in Dar es Salaam with Her Excellency Samia Suluhu, and in coordination with the African Development Bank and the World Bank, in last January, we held the African Summit on Energy, in order to promote access to electricity for millions of Africans in sub-Saharan countries. There were a number of energy pledges. In this regard, I call for extending our congratulations to the President of the African Development Bank and the President of the World Bank. for their efforts within the framework of this ambitious partnership to support development efforts in the continent. Energy plays an important role in dealing with climate challenges. These climate challenges have a major impact on our countries. There is the issue of global warming, and we need to deploy more efforts for the energy transformation. On your behalf, during the 29th session of the multi-party meeting on climate change, COP29, held in Baku in 2024, we called for the need for the international community to fulfill its commitment and to assist us in dealing with the negative impact of climate change. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the achievement of the second action plan to implement Agenda 2063 is closely related to the coordination between the AU and the regional economic communities. For this reason, in our mid-year coordinating committee in Accra, we focused on integrating our national plans in continental programs to achieve African complementarity and to make its voice heard. This common voice will enable us to have the position that should enable us to effectively participate in the development of international agenda that should focus on sensitive African issues. Therefore, in all these events, we defended the rights of the African continent in its representation in the Security Council. We also called for a review of the international rules of governance. Our efforts were positively met, and there were clear commitments to work on them in the various meetings. But the effectiveness of the follow-up and the joint African work mean that we need to continue the structural transformation of our continent. You all know the questions raised by the structural transformation, such as the principle of alternation and how this is implemented, in addition to the distribution of positions. Because of the sensitiveness of this issue, we held an extraordinary meeting of the Executive Council, during which there was a decision to see how we can apply the principle of alternation to have a just alternation between the regions. In line with this reformist spirit, we worked on the review of the skills within the African Union. An extraordinary meeting of the Executive Council was held in November 2024 to make a decision on the best ways to carry out this operation. Following extensive consultation, the Council identified solutions to this issue. It established a clear roadmap to continue this process. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in my initial speech, I emphasized the need to overcome the challenges, and I indicated that this could only be done by joint efforts on the basis of our common destiny in order to achieve our noble objectives. Today, I reiterate the same issue as I hand over the chairmanship to His Excellency President João Lourenço, wishing him full success in the mission he is entrusted with. I express my readiness to continue with supporting him. I should seize this opportunity to extend my thanks to Musa Faki Mohammed, the chairperson of the African Union Commission. I hail his leadership skills. I thank him for his valuable support during my term. I extend my thanks to the members of the African Union Commission and the various organs of the organization. I'm very proud for being able to serve my African continent and to be its voice in international meetings. I end my term fully convinced of the capacity of our continent to achieve the objectives of Agenda 2063. I'm more determined to work more effectively in this regard. I reiterate my congratulations to President João Lourenço. I wish him full success. I wish our summit full success. Long live the African Union. Long live Africa, independent and prosperous. I thank you very much for your attention.
شكرا فخامة الرئيس على كلمتكم. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now allow me to invite Yusuf Mundoha Asumani to Ethiopia African Union, Dean of the African Ambassadors in Ethiopia, to introduce the new Bureau of the African Union Assembly for this session.
Excellence Ahmed Ould, dans l'exercice et président de la République islamique de Excellence, Monsieur Abiy Ahmed, Premier ministre de la République fédérale démocratique. Excellence, Messieurs et Madame les chefs d'État de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Messieurs de l'État de la Palestine, Excellence, Madame la première vice-présidente de la République de Barbados, Excellence, Secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Excellence, Monsieur Moussa Faki Mohammed, Président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Monsieur le Secrétaire général adjoint de la Ligue des États arabes, Excellence, Mesdames les chefs des délégations, Excellence, représentants,
Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency, Deputy Secretary General of the Arab League of States, heads of delegations, Excellencies, ambassadors, permanent representatives and observers of states, Excellencies, commissioners, Excellencies, heads of African Union organs, invited guests, all protocols observed, Assalamu alaikum. I have the honor of introducing the Bureau of the Conference for 2025 pursuant to Article 16 of the Rules of Procedure of the Conference. The Bureau is as follows. Chair, the Republic of Angola, Southern Region. First Vice Chair, the Republic of Burundi, Central Region. Second Vice Chair, the Republic of Ghana, Western Region. Third Vice Chair, Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, Eastern Region. Apologies. Rapporteur, the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Northern Region, which is submitted for your approval. Thank you, Excellencies.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and congratulations for the new elected Bureau. I have the honor now to invite Excellency Mohammed Wil Sheikh Al Ghazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, to deliver his handover speech. Your Excellency, please.
Je voudrais remercier mes chers collègues.
I wish to thank my peers, heads of state and government, members of the Assembly, for having elected me at the head of the African Union as President for the period 2024-2025. Together, we have worked to advance the integration agenda on the continent. I wish to thank you for all the support and to thank you for the unflinching support that you gave me, contributing to the success of Mauritania and the entire continent in pursuing this lofty task. I will now call upon my brother, President João Lourenço, to hand over the baton, to him, and I wish him success in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And now I have the honor to welcome His Excellency João Manuel Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, the new chairperson of the African Union, for the handover ceremony in the high table. You are welcome, Your Excellency.
Okay, thank you. Obrigado.
Congratulations, Your Excellency. Allow me now to call His Excellency João Manuel Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, chairperson of the African Union, to deliver his acceptance speech. Your Excellency. Your Excellency.
His Majesty Mswati III from the Kingdom of Eswatini, Your Majesty Letsi III from the Kingdom of Lesotho, Your Excellency Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and the outgoing President of the African Union, Excellencies, Heads of States and Government, Your Excellency Abiy Ahmed Ali, Prime Minister of the Democratic and Federal Republic of Ethiopia, Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of United Nations, Excellencies, representatives of heads of states and governments, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, members, Excellencies, and President Mahmoud Abbas, President of the Palestinian Authority, and our guest of honor, Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps accredited in Addis Ababa, ladies and gentlemen. I would like on the outset to deeply thank His Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed from the Democratic and Federal Republic of Ethiopia and his people for once again, as it always the habit each year in February, that they host the most important meeting of the African Union. I would like to thank them for the warm welcome and hospitality that was accorded to us since our arrival in this beautiful country. I would also thank Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and the outgoing President of the African Union for the proactive way, dynamic and proactive way that he led our organization during his tenure. We were able to carry out through his mandate actions that contributed to the achievement of the main objective defined by our organization for the last year that just ended. And we also built educative systems that are strong to allow quality education for African citizens, taking into account the better performance of our continent at the global stage, taking into account the objectives of the Agenda 2063 of the African Union and Agenda 2030 of the United Nations. Excellencies, you are leaving us a great legacy. It's upon us now to continue to work and capitalize on your work that you leaving for us. And I count on your support and experience, as well as the support of all the other African countries, so that Angola can also undertake a presidency that will be at the level of our expectations, and that we can also add our efforts for the achievement of the development goals of our countries together with the achievement of Agenda 2063 in all our efforts in building the Africa that we want. My thanks are also addressed to all the African countries, but more especially Southern region, for the trust entrusted to us in order to lead in 2025 the African Union at a time when our continent is faced with major challenges related to peace and security, which are a blockage to many initiatives and actions that we want to undertake for the development of our nations. As you all know, it is the first time that Angola is assuming this major responsibility of leading the destiny of our continent in the coming 12 months. But we are going to look attentively to the problems of Africa, and we are going to contribute with our experience to finding solutions to peace and security, and for the implementation by member states of our economic policies, social policies, to promote progress and development of our continent. This is very important for us. The fact that we are assuming the chairship of the African Union in 2025, at the time we are also celebrating 50 years of our independence, national independence. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, throughout this conference, many issues will be discussed that are very important for our continent. The working framework of the African Union and the operationalization, the issue related to justice for African and people of African descendants to true reparations, which is the theme selected for this year, and a theme that Angola also chose for its chairship, which is related to the building infrastructure as a factor for development for Africa. These aspects, if combined, can allow us to build a communication channel and a channel of dialogue with our partners. It will make us understand the importance and the advantage of cooperating for a developed Africa, Africa that is industrialized, that is going to win over hunger, misery, and unemployment, and reducing the probability of armed conflict and illegal immigration. We will have the opportunity to address all these aspects in our fourth conference for development that is going to take place in Sevilla in Spain from 30th June to 4 July this year. And we believe this is a historical opportunity to redefine the rules of financing based on economic justice and inclusion, taking into account the commitments from previous conferences that were not fulfilled, especially the Monterey Consensus, Doha Declaration, and Addis Ababa Declaration. The fourth Sevilla Conference is going to address the challenges that we are faced in the funding for development and promoting the adoption of innovative solutions and more effective solutions such as fiscal justice, debt relief, climate funding, reforms in financial and global institutions, and social inclusion. These are going to deserve our attention so that we can adopt a common position that can ensure the continent to its influence in the global governance and the reduction of the cost of the debt, and for a sustainable development of our continent. The achievement of these objectives is going to create synergies that are going to promote more trade, more cultural exchange, and technology, and other aspects that are going to bring benefits for all the parts involved. we believe that in the objective that we aim for our countries, we include issues that are for priorities, especially in fundamental infrastructures, railways, roads, airports, and ports, power supply stations that are essential for the industrialization of our continent and to improve the living conditions of our people. During our presidency of the African Union that we are going to assume from today, we hope to work together with all the members of our institutions. We're hoping to launch a plan for together with our partners so that the African Union Commission can be able to establish the basis for infrastructure projects that are going to be undertaken in our continent. We would like to underline the contribution of Angola for the development of Africa, taking into account our superavit when it comes to energy supply, especially in this sector of energy. Given its strategic relevance that it have in the transportation of goods and in African trade between Africa and within Africa, taking into account the Lobito corridor and the Tanzanian railways that we believe are going to play a major role in connecting African countries and in promoting the trade that we want to achieve, especially under the AFCFTA. Taking into account what I've just said, I believe that we should come up with a well-defined strategy in order to yield the benefits. I believe that by integrating G20, it's essential in ensuring that Africa plays an active role in global decisions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the strategic lines of our presidency are aligned in general terms with the priority actions defined by our continent, especially under the acceleration of the implementation of the second 10-year implementation plan of the Agenda 2063, especially covering 2024-2034, centered in transportation infrastructure, connectivity, energy, natural resources, peace and security, agriculture, blue economy, continental integration, and African free trade area and strategic partnerships. In this framework, our major lines of our interventions of major importance is the issue of peace and security, because we believe this is one of the pillars for the materialization of the aspirations of our Agenda 2063 of the African Union, especially the program that aims at silencing the guns by 2030, by transforming Africa in a peaceful region, safe, with a promising future, with prosperity for all Africans, and in placing our continent in the development route. In the reports of our activities, the undertaken as a champion, AU champion for peace and reconciliation in Africa, I made a detailed presentation, the activities that I undertook in helping the achievement of peace in our continent, especially in the eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo. I will also present my vision on what I believe that is essential to be taken into account in the future in order to put an end to the conflicts in Africa and in order to address the challenge of unconstitutional change of government, terrorism, invasion, and occupation of neighboring countries. We also have major challenges related to natural disaster resulting from climate changes and Marburg, cholera, and other diseases that are affecting us, and call on us to unite our efforts in order to find collective solutions for their elimination. In this perspective, I believe that it's essential that the third conference on the oceans that is going to take place in France is an opportunity for us to address the main concerns of this topic and that are affecting our continent. With more than 30 coastal countries, our continent will have to protect maritime ecosystems and promote blue economy and undertake more actions against illegal fish, maritime pollution, and against climate changes, which are major challenges that we have to face together permanently. I would like to hope that this conference will contribute to reinforce our coastal resilience and building conditions to mobilize international funding for sustainable projects under the blue economy. Excellencies, this year and during the Angolan presidency, we are going to work in coordination with the African Union Commission to mobilize financial resources through the contributions of our member states in order to be able to have necessary resources for the realizations of projects and programs of continental level and reducing our dependencies for external funding. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are living a global landscape, a very challenging global landscape, especially with the challenge in our continent and in Eastern Europe and Middle East. Despite all that, we are sure that by combining our efforts and joining force, we are going to overcome these challenges and build the Africa that we dream of, contributing in the solution of the problems that are affecting our humanity. It's in this context that I believe that we should continue to act together so that the United Nations will be more inclusive and more aligned to the challenges and opportunities. And the reform of the United Nations should continue to be a priority for our continent. And it is very important to reaffirm our commitment with the consensus of Ezulin and the Sirte Declaration of 2005 for 2 seats as permanent members with the right of veto and other privileges that are related to the seats. Excellencies, I would like to call on you your best contribution so that our presidents of our continental organization that we assume today can take part, can happen in a climate of understanding and the dynamics that is necessary in this long work that we together undertake for the transformation of Africa as a continent that rich and prosperous for its people. Allow me to address my vote of thanks to His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed and the outgoing commissioners that had their mandates at the commission for their excellent work throughout their mandates at the helm of our common house of Africa. I wish to the new coming commission successes in their mandates and endeavors. And I appeal that the Pan-African spirit and the ideals of our founding fathers continue to lead the future of our continental organization. I would like to hereby accept to undertake the functions of the chair of the African Union, and that our tears today for having lost the African child, Sam Nyoma, will be transformed in strength that will help us achieve the challenge that are ahead of us. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in introducing the theme of the year 2025, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations, it is now with great honor that I welcome Her Excellency Dr. Monique Nzanza Baganwa, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, who will share her introductory remarks. Your Excellency. Then we will introduce Barbados.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the Chairperson of the African Union, Your Majesties, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency and dear brother, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, allow me to stand on already established protocol. Over the past centuries, the voices of Africans and people of African descent have echoed in various quarters with a singular demand: justice. Justice for the millions who were forcibly uprooted from their homes. Justice for those whose lands were plundered, wealth stolen, and dignity were stripped away. And justice for the generations that continue to face economic, social, and political disenfranchisement stemming from historical wrongs. As I draw my term in office as Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission to an end soon, a unique opportunity is offered to me and one of my teams, SIDO, to introduce to you the 2025 theme of the year, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations. As we embark on this journey in 2025, we are guided by the words of the eminent Pan-Africanist Kwame Nkrumah, who declared, and I quote, "We face neither east nor west. We face forward." The African Union's Agenda 2063 envisions a continent that is integrated, prosperous, and driven by its own citizens, a continent that is peaceful. The strength of this Africa has always been in its unity and resilience. At this moment, we stand at the precipice of history, and together we shall pave the way for a more just and dignified future for Africa, the CARICOM, and Africa's global diaspora at large. Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, as I conclude, since I'm not the one to deliver the high-level message, we have two leaders who will do it in just a short. But let me take this opportunity to thank all our stakeholders who have journeyed with us. Thank you, Ghana, and our champion, President Mahama, for inspiring the African Union with this theme. I wish to thank you, my dear brother Musa Faki, for your leadership and support. But through you also, acknowledge our teams who have worked hard around this theme of the year. Especially, I wish to recognize two ladies. Madam Coleman from your cabinet chairperson, and Angela from CEDAW. You did an amazing work. Special appreciation goes to Her Excellency Mia Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chair of the CARICOM Authority. You have traveled all the way from home to another home to join us in today's launch. May I now invite you, Your Excellency, to come to the podium and address this august assembly. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Your Excellencies, and may I start, Chairperson of the African Union, President of Angola, Your Excellency, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and our host, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Your Excellency, Outgoing Chairperson of the African Union, and President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government of the African Union, and First Ladies present, Your Excellency, the President of Palestinian Authority, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, former heads of state and heads of government of the African Union, distinguished delegates, ambassadors, and guests all. I stand here clothed in the spirit of the battles of Adwa, conscious that it was that battle within 24 hours that shook the confidence of the powers of Europe, but inspired the people of Africa and the children of the African diaspora that good would prevail over evil and light over darkness, but only in the context of our unity. I stand here conscious that it was that battle that forged the beginnings of Pan-Africanism that eventually led to the movement for independence and the destruction of the colonial powers to give us not full development and power, but the first steps of political independence. I stand here conscious and buffeted by the dreams and works of the great Pan-African pioneers, and conscious that as a children of the Caribbean, we have long dreamt for the moment of unity with our brothers and sisters of Africa, a division that was secured by those whose success and survival depended on separation of us rather than on the ability for us to act as one common people. Our relationship, you can say, was embryonic. But regrettably, as long as it has been and as related as we have been, it has been sporadic. And it is up to us as the children of independent states to determine whether the history of separation shall be our future or whether the spirit of Adwa can be our inspiration to confront the challenges of a new world. Yes, I stand here as a daughter of Africa. I stand here equally as a proud Prime Minister of Barbados, a country which is the first landmass that you reach after you leave this great continent of Africa. A country which became a hub for the wrong reasons, but today I come to Ethiopia to share with you in the Africa Union that we can be a hub now for the right reasons between our two peoples. I stand here as the proud chairman of CARICOM, the Caribbean community, recognizing that as a member of the 6th region of Africa, we have come to reclaim our Atlantic destiny. We have come to ensure that the very futures of our people are different and will not once again be determined by a middleman who will ensure that the Middle Passage is one that sees our people at the bottom of the ocean's floor of the Atlantic or in the fields of the plantations of the Caribbean, but instead that it will be a future that sees our people, hears our people, feels our people, and that will determine in future that it is we who shall forge the manner in which we cooperate, integrate, and invest, rather than simply being victims of a past history. I stand here equally as the chair of the V20, 70 countries across the world that are climate vulnerable, 40% of whom come from this great continent of Africa, recognizing that it is only through unity that we can confront the existential crisis of our generation, that of the climate crisis. The Secretary General of the United Nations has already laid out, ably so, many of the iniquities that we continue to face in spite of political independence. It was His Majesty Haile Selassie who popularized and told us that there shall be no first-class or second-class citizens, words popularized by Bob Marley, learned by all of our people without appropriately recognizing the context in which he spoke and the mission which must be ours for generations until it is achieved. He told us that there would be war if there were first-class and second-class citizens. He told us that there would be war if the color of our skin was more significant than the color of our eyes. And we see here in the continent the continued descent into conflicts born out of ethnicity differences, born out of a mad grab for resources, not invariably for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others who seek to use our people as pawns in the determination of their own future. But we stand here as proud people, and we have enough among ourselves to know the difference between right and wrong, and to forge a future that is not for a few, but for the many. Indeed, as the world confronts the climate crisis, it is the poorest of the poor who remain the most vulnerable to floods and droughts and hurricanes. It is the poorest of the poor, and soon to be the middle of the middle, who will no longer be able to access insurance and therefore to be able to forge ahead with development if we do not make changes. We have examples of a partnership that have worked for us, not just from the spirit of Adwa and the conquest and the rise of the Pan-Africanist movement in our history, but within recent times. During the COVID-19 pandemic, It was the African Union, under the leadership then of President Ramaphosa, and with the assistance of Dr. Tedros of the WHO, that recognized that the Caribbean, which was being marginalized by denial of access to basic therapeutics, basic medical equipment, to vaccines, that we should not be left as pariahs on the global landscape, but that our brothers and sisters in Africa would bring us through the Africa Medical Supplies Platform to be able to ensure that we could secure for our own people. It was with the solidarity of many of you in the African Union that the Bridgetown Initiative has been able to take root and to make a case for a more modern and a fairer system that allows us to be able to access finance and to be able to put in place measures that allow us to be able to pause our repayment of debt during the period of necessity for rebuilding after horrific climatic events. We have seen how partnership helps us. We do not need any more evidence. What is required of us is to lead the way to peace, to prosperity, and to justice. And the reparations which we call for the international community to be able to recognize, first and foremost, with that which we ask from each of our children. Say sorry. Say sorry. And mean it. And after you say sorry, recognize that the future of the world is not possible without the stability of Africa and its diaspora. For as long as hypocrisy and double standards remain, it will be impossible to secure stability and peace in any nation across the earth. The reparations that we call for, beyond sorry, must be for fair access and development and compensation, because we each started the journey of independence with a chronic deficit. A deficit of resources, a deficit of fairness, a deficit of opportunity. And it is up to us, many of us in the second and third generation of independence, to be able to frame out fairly in a mature conversation what those reparations must look like if we are to attain justice and to inspire the young people of this world that good must always prevail over evil. But it is not only the reparations that we ask from the international community, because we ourselves must repair the damage that was foisted on us. The notion that transit visas, begging for them, must be the lot of our people in order to move across this world cannot be something that gives us satisfaction. To go east and to go west, we are first forced to go north. It is not right. And it is not beyond the heads of government and heads of state, of the region, of the Caribbean community, and of the continent of Africa to determine that we must stop talking about, but simply do what is necessary to build the air bridges and sea bridges to guarantee that we control our destiny. I ask us to reflect on this because it is this simple act, apart from our music and our culture and our food, that will guarantee that it is not simply heads of government and heads of state that will meet in Accra or Bridgetown, but it is ordinary people who will be able to trade and to move from the closest point of Dakar to the closest point of Bridgetown, to be able to open up the opportunities that technically ought to be available not just simply through the Africa Free Trade Area or the CARICOM single market and economy, but through the combined opportunities provided by both. I ask us equally to recognize that in an era where AI is threatening to redefine what humanity can do and even if we can survive, that it is not ours to be the victims once again of technology as we were with gunpowder, but it is for us to help shape the future of the world, because more often than not it is Africa and its people who have brought the humanizing forces to bear on civilization. And if we are to be the cradle of civilization, then we are to be the protectors of people and planet, of humanity, as we go forward. And some watching on may say, how? And I say, how not? How not does a continent that has 40% of the world's minerals not be in charge of helping to secure the destiny and stability of the planet? How not does the numbers of our two communities, who constitute a third of the world's states, not act in singular purpose to forge the kind of world that we want, and to be able to ensure that the institutions that deny access to us, to hear our voices as reflective of the continent and of the small island developing states of the world, how do we not secure that admission, which is not only just, but a moral imperative if the world is to have stability in this 21st century? My friends, I ask you, how do we not secure this victory when 1 in every 5 and possibly 1 in every 4 persons on the planet will come from this continent and its diaspora? Those who lead today have a moral imperative, not just to our citizens in our own countries, but above all else, to unity. The spirit of Adwa demands of us that we recognize that even in the face of the greatest technology being foisted upon us, that we can rise and win if we act in unity. This has been a message not given by our generation alone, but by previous generations of African and Caribbean leaders. But we ask ourselves, why does it elude us? And the answer comes not from outside, but only from within. When I speak of the USA with affection, I do not only want to speak of that which is known in the Americas. I want to speak about that which ought to have been possible if the 1884 Berlin talks did not take place. The possibility of the United States of Africa, which is as diverse as India, which is as diverse as China in terms of ethnicity and language and religion, but which is entirely possible if we see not ourselves first, but we see the unity of ourselves together. This may be the cry of a naive and romantic daughter of Africa. But if that is the case, I prefer to die being a naive and romantic daughter of Africa than one who is cynical and one who is daunted by the actions and power of others. We know what it is to stand in unity with you to fight apartheid and to fight for the liberation of the peoples of Africa. For when President Castro stood to send people from his own country to southern Africa to free your people, it was in my own country that the planes refueled, ensuring that that battle was possible. And when 100 years ago, almost, a Barbadian man and woman left our nation and left the United States to come here, Arnold and Mignon Ford, he wrote the anthem and lyrics of the anthem of the United Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, and his wife dared to establish a co-educational school here in Ethiopia, ensuring that boys and girls could receive education in a time and at a time when war was dominating the global landscape. They chose to see light rather than darkness. I ask us today, in tangible terms, that will allow our people to travel, that will allow us to pool our investments to ensure that the people of Africa not be denied the electricity that is so necessary as a platform for participation in the new world. I ask us not only to pool that investment, but to also ensure that we pool our voices, because there is too much division in this world today. There is too much war and there is too much conflict. And we know what precipitates and causes that. If we leave Addis Ababa with the commitment that the world is not going to be safe without a prosperous and stable Africa, then we understand what is the moral imperatives we must undertake in each of our countries to secure that unity of purpose and to secure ultimately the saving of the people and planet. I ask you today to recognize that, and I thank Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for agreeing that the first in-face summit of CARICOM and the African Union should take place here in Addis Ababa on the 7th of September of this year of our Lord. By that simple act, we build on the inaugural summit which took place virtually in 2021. But more importantly, we seek to regularize and to establish as a permanent point of interaction the unity of which I speak and call for. And I ask you as I leave this podium to recognize that we too in the Caribbean want to see you. Indeed, in my own country in Barbados, we will celebrate the Caribbean Festival of Arts, the 15th CariFesta, from August 22nd to August 31st. And we do so not only asking for those from Cuba and Bahamas in the north, to Venezuela, to Suriname and Guyana in the south, to Belize in the west and the Eastern Caribbean to come together to express our commitment to each other creatively through food and fashion and music and dance and art and sculpture, and talk of philosophy, talk of religion, talk of who we are, talk of the future. I ask us to recognize that we celebrate this year our resilience, and that we do so not only asking the people of the Caribbean to come, but the people from whom we came here in Africa, in India, in China, and the continent to which we went, in particular in Central America and Latin America. This is our moment to show the world that we were not simply apostrophes to the history and the modern history of humanity, but that truly we are the ones who can level the playing field and to create the opportunities that will allow the world to see people, hear people, and feel people, and to value the planet and its biodiversity at the very time when it is greatest in crisis. Let us remove the scars of history and be firm craftsmen of our fate, recognizing that the only people who can stop us now are we, but ourselves. We have to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery and to build the future that our people want of us and to give them that pride that is theirs. And we must do so in the spirit and with the results of ADWA. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Prime Minister of Barbados, Chair of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, for a global call for the African Union theme of year 2025. It is my distinct honor to welcome now His Excellency John Mahama, the President of the Republic of Ghana, as the African Union leader on advancing the cause of justice and payment of reparations to Africans. Your Excellency.
Thank you.
Your Excellency Chairman, President of Angola, Your Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Your Excellency Chairperson of the African Union, and in the interest of time, may I just proceed on established protocol and say, Your Excellencies, my colleague, heads of state, distinguished citizens. It's a privilege to address this historic launch of the African Union theme of the year 2025, and I quote, "Justice for Africans and the people of African descent through reparations," unquote. This moment marks a significant milestone in our collective pursuit of justice, equity, and the long overdue recognition of the historical injustices that continue to shape the lives of Africans and the people of African descent worldwide. At the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the African Union in February 2024, our heads of state and government made a landmark decision to dedicate the year 2025 to the cause of reparatory justice. This decision underscores our collective commitment to addressing the historical injustices and their lingering consequences that have impacted generations of Africans and people of African descent. It aligns with our broader struggle for liberation, unity, and socioeconomic empowerment as enshrined in Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, a vision for an integrated, peaceful, and prosperous continent. Your Excellencies, the transatlantic slave trade was one of the most heinous crimes against humanity. Spanning about 400 years and forcibly displacing more than 12.5 million Africans, it is estimated that at least 2 million of our compatriots perished during the Middle Passage alone. The legacy of this brutal system, along with colonialism, apartheid, genocide, and new colonial exploitation, have left deep and enduring scars on the fabric of our societies. Today, the descendants of enslaved Africans continue to face economic disparities, social inequality, systemic discrimination, and racial prejudices. Addressing these challenges require more than just acknowledging them. It demands action. The economic impact of colonialism on Africa has been profound. Historical estimates suggest that the continent lost trillions of dollars in both human and material resources due to colonial exploitation. The forced extraction of wealth, which included minerals, cash crops, and labor, deprived African nations of the capital and infrastructure necessary for sustainable development. Colonial policies intentionally stifled industrial growth, leading to a dependency on foreign economies that persists even till today. The systemic plundering of Africa's natural resources, coupled with the disruption of traditional governance structures, has resulted in lasting consequences, worsening poverty, underdevelopment, and inequality throughout the continent. In November 2023, Ghana hosted the Accra Reparations Conference, a historic gathering that brought together African heads of state, scholars, and representatives of the global African diaspora to advance the reparations movement. This conference reaffirmed the urgent need for comprehensive reparatory justice and laid the foundation for stronger advocacy and policy frameworks. It provided a platform for dialogue on the financial, cultural, and social restitution necessary to address the enduring effects of slavery and colonialism. The outcomes of this conference served as a guiding pillar for our collective efforts moving forward. The 2025 AU theme of the year is therefore a call to galvanize efforts towards reparatory justice. It is an appeal to ensure that the dignity, rights, and well-being of Africans and their descendants are fully restored. Reparations involves not only financial compensation, but also restitution, rehabilitation, and guarantees of non-repetition for the abuse of fellow human beings. It is also about truth-telling, historical accountability, and the restoration of agency to those who have been marginalized for centuries. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the call for reparations, while including, extends beyond financial redress to encompass addressing structural inequalities, ensuring educational and economic opportunities, reclaiming cultural heritage, and amplifying the voice of Africa and the diaspora communities on the global stage. Achieving justice requires multi-stakeholder collaboration. Today's pre-launch event serves as a crucial platform for concertedly rolling out constructive consultation, dialogue, and partnership. We welcome the participation of AU member states, regional economic communities, the global African diaspora, civil society organizations, academia, the private sector, and international partners in this transformative endeavor. The African Union Commission, in collaboration with key partners, have developed a concept note and revised the roadmap to guide the implementation of the reparations agenda. This initiative will further the aspirations of Agenda 2063, fostering an Africa that is self-reliant, just, and inclusive. Through this launch, we seek to, among other things, mobilize political will and commitment towards reparatory justice and racial healing, present and discuss the roadmap for implementing the 2025 theme of the year, foster partnerships among AU member states, diaspora communities, and like-minded international allies, engage stakeholders in resource mobilization efforts to support reparations initiatives across Africa, elevate awareness and advocacy to ensure sustained engagement beyond 2025, encourage dialogue and knowledge sharing among experts, policymakers, historians, and affected communities, and finally, to ensure an end to the culture of silence and denial on racism and colonialism. Your Excellency, the work ahead requires a unified voice, a clear strategy, and unyielding commitment. Today, we reaffirm our commitment to working together to develop policies and frameworks that will support reparations efforts across Africa and beyond. We must continue to advocate for stronger legal and institutional mechanisms at the national, regional, and international levels to ensure that reparatory justice for the historical trauma inflicted on global Africa is not just a conversation, but a reality. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, I wish to express Ghana's unwavering support for this critical initiative. Let us seize this moment with the determination it deserves as we work together towards a future that is fair, that is just, and equitable for all Africans and people of African descent, and by natural extension, the uplifting of all humanity. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Allow me now, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to move to the family photo while calling the rest of the respective delegates to remain in their seats. Remain in their seats, please, to ensure the smooth organization of the family photo. Allow me this time to call Excellencies and Honorable Heads of States and delegates in an organized manner to proceed to the photo session location. Allow me now to start by calling distinguished presidents from Liberia, Libya, Madagascar, and Malawi. Please follow our protocol team to the family photo. There is only one door open for the family photo, which is gate number 5. Please, protocol teams, lead our leaders to the family photo. And then the second row, please, distinguished presidents and heads of states from Cape Verde, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Comoros, Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, Democratic Republic of Congo, Djibouti, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Swatini, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, and Lesotho. Please follow our protocol team to the family photo. Excellencies, Presidents and heads of delegations from Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Africa, South Sudan, Tanzania, Togo, Tunisia, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Algeria, Benin, Botswana, and Burundi. Please follow our protocol team to the photo session location. Honorable Presidents and heads of delegations from Mauritania, Mauritius, Morocco, Mozambique, Namibia, Nigeria, Rwanda, Sahrawi Republic, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, Seychelles, please follow our protocol team. Excellency Prime Minister of Barbados. They went? Okay. Okay, with that, I thank you all for your time and I wish you fruitful deliberations. They didn't wait. Yes. They will change. I have my team.